What if we thought about anti-aging, not like medicine, but like managing a factory? Seriously. We're going to dive into a really cool analysis from a retired engineer who looks at the human body like a super complex, high-precision factory. And for him, slowing down aging isn't about some magic pill. It's about optimizing the whole system.
You've probably been there, right? You start taking something like NMN, you feel that amazing initial boost, and you're thinking, this is it. But then, after a while, it just feels like you've flatlined. You've hit a plateau. So what's going on?
The simplest explanation is what some people call the bathtub theory. Just picture your body's energy, this molecule called NAD+, as the water in a bathtub. And NMN, that's the faucet. As we get older, that faucet gets kind of rusty. The flow gets weaker. So taking NMN is like cranking the faucet open again. Simple enough. But what happens when that stops working?
And this is exactly where that simple theory just falls apart. See, the problem isn't just the faucet. When you actually go and audit the factory floor after it's been running for a few decades, you find out the whole system is in chaos. We're not just dealing with a raw material shortage anymore. We're in a full-blown crisis with waste management and, the structural integrity of the whole place.
So let's put on our hard hats and follow this engineer's audit. What he found was that it's not just one single thing going wrong. It's actually 3 disasters happening all at the same time, and they perfectly explain why just turning up the NMN faucet isn't enough. Disaster number 1, that drain at the bottom of the bathtub, well, it's corroding. It's getting bigger and bigger. This means a huge chunk of the NAD+ your body is making, or that you're supplementing with, is just getting wasted. It's flowing right out of the system before you can even use it.
Oh, but it gets worse. The tub itself is actually starting to fail. It's developing all of these tiny little microcracks, which is the perfect way to think about how chronic inflammation messes with our system's integrity. It's like death by 1,000 cuts, with every single little leak just draining your precious energy.
And here it is, the most critical failure of all. The tub is slowly filling up with toxic sludge. Now, this stuff doesn't just take up space, it's actively corrosive. It's making the cracks worse, it's making the drain corrode even faster. It's basically an internal saboteur, wrecking the whole system from the inside out.
So you can see how even a fire hose of NMN isn't going to fill this broken tub. The solution needs a whole new blueprint, a system-wide plan that our engineer calls the anti-aging golden triangle.
Now, what's so brilliant about this is the logic. It's not just about adding more stuff anymore. It's a 3-part strategy. First, you still got to replenish your raw materials. That's a given. But then, you have to conserve what you've got by plugging up all those leaks. And maybe most important of all, you have to cleanse the system of that toxic sludge that's causing all the problems to begin with.
Let's really look at that second point, conserve. That giant corroded drain in our bathtub, that's a very real enzyme in our bodies called CD38. As we age, and as inflammation creeps up, CD38 goes into overdrive. It becomes this NAD+ devouring beast. So the strategy is to use inhibitors, something like quercetin, to help shrink that drain back down to its normal, manageable size.
But what's causing that devouring beast CD38 to go so haywire in the first place? Well, this brings us to the most fundamental part of the whole triangle, cleans. That toxic sludge we were talking about, it's actually a real thing called senescent cells, or as you might have heard, zombie cells. These cells literally refuse to die. They just hang around, pumping out inflammatory junk that constantly pokes and prods that CD38 beast. They are the absolute root cause of the entire system breakdown.
Okay, so let's put it all together. This table really lays out the whole feedback loop perfectly. The zombie cells build up, right? That causes inflammation. That inflammation then wakes up the CD38 enzyme, which then wastes all your NAD+. And that's why if you don't periodically get in there and cleanse out those zombie cells with something like fisetin, you're just forever patching a leak instead of actually fixing the source of the problem.
So we have the blueprint. We get the theory. But how do we actually put this into action? Well, the engineer's strategy is pretty tactical. It's not a constant, everyday thing. He calls it hit and run.
Now, this is not your typical take this pill every single day advice. It's much more like a factory maintenance schedule. The run phase, that's your daily operation. You're replenishing with NMN and conserving with quercetin to manage the daily wear and tear. But the hit, that's a periodic deep clean. For just a couple of days a month, you go in hard with a high-dose pulse of a senolytic like fisetin to clear out those zombie cells. Then you run. You give the system time to recover, to regenerate, and to get back to optimal performance. And
here's maybe the best part of this whole thing. You do not need a cabinet overflowing with expensive supplements to make this work. In fact, the most powerful tools for optimizing your factory are already right there for you, and they are completely 100% free.
Want to replenish your NAD+? You know, the most effective way is to just get your factory to make more of it on its own. Things like high-intensity interval training, or HIIT, send this urgent demand signal to your cells, basically forcing them to ramp up their own internal NAD+ production machinery. Need to conserve your resources? Plug those leaks? Just remember, the main thing driving CD38 crazy is chronic inflammation. So a low-sugar, anti-inflammatory diet, and, this is a huge one, getting high-quality sleep are the most powerful ways you can quiet down that inflammation and stop wasting all that precious NAD+.
And finally, how do we cleanse the factory of all that toxic sludge? Well, our bodies have their own built-in cleaning program. It's called autophagy, and you can turn it on with things like intermittent fasting or using a sauna for heat stress. These things trigger a system-wide cleanup, recycling old junk and clearing out those damaged zombie cells.
So what's the big takeaway from all this? What's the bottom line from this engineer's audit? It's really about a fundamental shift in how you think. It's time to stop just being a passive consumer and start acting like the manager of your own factory.
You know, as the factory manager, your daily dashboard really just comes down to these 3 simple questions. Am I getting enough raw materials in? Am I preventing waste and plugging the leaks? And am I scheduling those regular deep cleans to get rid of the junk that causes all the breakdowns in the first place?
And that's really the heart of it all. The real power isn't in any single pill. It's in understanding the system as a whole and making smart, strategic decisions to keep it running smoothly. It's about taking ownership of the entire process.
And that kind of leads to one last thought. This golden triangle, it's today's advanced model, for sure. But our understanding of all this is constantly evolving. I mean, we've already moved from focusing on just one single point, replenish, to a whole 3-point system. So what's the model going to look like in 5 years? Or 10? A square? A cube? What other interconnected systems in our body's factory are we just starting to discover? That right there, that's the next frontier for all of us.